Welcome back to the Steve Malzberg Show. Coming up in a little while, we'll be joined by Ryan Morrow, national security analyst at ClarionProject.com. And Ryan's going to talk about the dry ice bombs at LAX, the dry run on the flight from D.C. to Orlando and back that we talked about yesterday, and also how we're funding radical Islam, Muslim Brotherhood style, in Turkey and Qatar. Interesting stuff coming up in this half hour. But right now, we're joined by Tom Hutchinson, senior financial editor of the HighIncomeFactor.com newsletter. Welcome aboard. Great to see you.
Thanks for having me, Steve.
Okay, so 30 hours till the quote-unquote default, to the debt ceiling. If it's not raised, we're in trouble. Talk about first what would happen if we reach Thursday at midnight or whatever that deadline is. What happens immediately? Nothing really, right?
Well, let me first start telling you what won't happen.
Okay.
They've been running around threatening a default, like we'll default on our debt. That will not happen. We take in revenues every month more than 10 times what it takes to pay the interest on our debt. And legally, they're obligated to do that first. And you can also prioritize Social Security payments for the military. So a default, as it's currently being projected in the media, is a complete falsehood.
And as it's being projected by Obama and the Treasury Secretary and the Democrats.
Well, most especially, yes.
Yeah.
But again, we do cross the deadline. The markets aren't going to like it because nobody knows exactly what will happen. Now, you can use the word default, and they insinuate it to mean not paying our bonds.
Right.
But you can also say if you don't pay any of your bills on time, it's a technical default.
Okay. Which
could be arguably the case. Now, if that happens, no one really knows what would happen, but it most certainly wouldn't be the catastrophe that some are out there calling.
So paying the interest on the debt, paying Social Security, paying our military, and that would involve prioritizing, which is what, God forbid, you lose your job, I lose my job, or our incomes get cut. All of a sudden, we got to decide, okay, are we going to spend our money on medicine, or are we going to spend our money on eating out 3 times a week? That's prioritizing, which is what the Treasury Secretary has said. You can't do it because it's everything. This is what they said. Everything's computerized. So it's not like you could say, okay, I'm going to write the checks out because it takes, there are millions of checks. So you can't write the checks out to who you decide. It's all done by computer. You can't prioritize who the computer will write the checks out to. Is there any validity in your view to that?
I can't imagine that they can't prioritize and send it out. We'll work on the computers. Fix it.
We've seen Obamacare.
Well, yeah, but I would get to work on that right away. But no, they certainly can prioritize.
Right,
might be a little trouble.
Okay, so if they prioritize and want to prioritize and not purposely cause chaos and wreak havoc, then they could take care of the debt, they could take care of Social Security, but there will be some things that they can't pay, no matter what it is, and you said that would technically be defined as default of something, right?
Right. If they don't, they don't pay a contractor on time.
Yeah.
They don't pay for some supplies on time. And who knows how the market wouldn't like it.
Right. And our credit rating. There's already a credit agency, Fitch, says that the U.S. is on rating watch negative. What exactly does that mean?
Well, it means that, they're leaning toward a negative rating.
Now, that's not AAA, AA. I mean, explain to me. There's positive, negative, and then there's, in addition to A, AA, AAA, or?
Well, that means that bias negative means the next step down.
Okay, so if it's triple, it'll go to double.
Right.
Okay, gotcha.
Right.
So how, if Fitch acts tomorrow in anticipation that there's still no deal and they don't have confidence, what might we see in the markets?
You mean if Fitch does downgrade our rating?
Yeah, if they downgrade tomorrow or so.
The markets aren't going to like it. But again, they should have downgraded us a long time ago. The ratings they have are a joke. The ratings agencies prostituted themselves in the financial crisis. And then when finally it was interesting, when in 2011 the government actually made steps to control its fiscal spending, that's when they downgraded it.
Right.
So it doesn't make a lot of sense. Plus, after being sued by the government, S&P sued by the government, I don't know how anxious these other agencies are to jump into that.
We're talking to Tom Hutchinson, senior financial editor of the HighIncomeFactor.com, and the website is HighIncomeFactor.com, and if that doesn't work, try the incomefactor.com. A lot of great information there for you. Okay, so as you sit here, let me rephrase that. As I sit here, I'm not a rich man, and people listening to us, most of them aren't rich people. Maybe they have a 401k, maybe their kid has a 529, and I'm not asking for financial advice necessarily, so I'll phrase it this way. How concerned should they be?
Well,
short term and long term.
Yeah, I wouldn't be too concerned in the short term. They'll bang along. The market has an upward bias. Frankly, if this current rift causes a sell-off, I think it's a much overdue opportunity and a great chance to get in.
So that's for the long term too. So a good opportunity long term.
I think for the next year or two, things look pretty good for the market. Over the longer term than that, now we get into some shenanigans with the money printing and all that, and what effect will that have?
Right. Well, the new nominee for the Fed. All indications are, as a non-pro, that she will basically continue or believes in the philosophy that Bernanke has had all along, which is print, right?
Well, you would think so, because you'd figure Obama would want to pick a dove, and a dove is described as somebody who's anxious to print and spur the economy. Because as would any president presiding over a sluggish economy, they want him to juice up the economy on their watch. So they're apparently, I think he feels she'll be dovish. And certainly it's given every indication, but she has had somewhat of an independent streak. I wouldn't write her off yet. I think, she has some good qualities.
All right. So let me we've addressed the debt and the crisis and where it could go and where, it may not go. But let me ask you about Obamacare a little bit. As the economic experts that I've talked to over the years under Obama, regulation, uncertainty as far as businesses are concerned, why there's no hiring or very little hiring and not enough hiring, and the numbers indicate, they bear that out, that we need $250 a month to make a dent, and we don't get that. Threat of regulation, uncertainty of taxes, etc. And Obamacare has been staring businesses in the face, and now we're seeing them start to scramble, either lay employees off, more part-timers, even notwithstanding Kathleen Sebelius, who denied that part-time employment is up. When the jobs reports come out, part-time employment is at an all-time high. Is there a new normal right now in this country?
Yeah, there is a new normal. And Obamacare is a big part of it, and everything he said, the regulations, everything else. That is going to be a drag on the economy. But the American economy is pretty resilient. You can beat it up pretty good. And, in the last couple of years, it's been one of the best Western economies around. The market's been good, with a lot of help from the Fed. But even under these bad circumstances, it has shown some signs of life. But as long as you have those drags that you speak of, you're never going to see the 4.5% growth that you saw in the 80s and 90s.
Yeah, those days gone. Okay, you and I were talking before we went on and talking about the Republicans and the mistake that was made and to close down the government to take us to this point because the factors were working against them. Correct?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, I don't say it was a mistake to threaten to shut down the government. What a lot of people don't understand is
to think that they wouldn't be blamed was a mistake. I guess.
That was a big mistake. Yeah. Because that is for sure, and the Republicans should have known, taking on this administration, and the government expansion and that sort of thing, they are going to get a heavy reaction. And this administration not only has the bully pulpit, which is always good to have, but they have the Obama media on their side too.
Absolutely.
And if you think the House of Representatives can take that on and win the PR battle, you're crazy.
Although, interesting, independents, the AP poll, independents disapprove of Obama 60%. He has a 16% approval rating, and that was borne out in the Washington Post ABC News poll that came out yesterday. I think the approval rating, disapproval rating for independents was like 57%. So he's taken quite a hit. His overall approval rating in the AP poll last week was 37%. But the media doesn't trumpet that. And the Wall Street Journal poll that came out where they showed Republicans, I think 57% blame Republicans. You know what the four choices were? Obama, the Republicans in the Congress, both, or don't know. There was no option to pick and blame Democrats in the Congress. There was no option.
Absolutely. And these are very interesting numbers you point out, because the 37% is a bad number.
The independent number is terrible.
The independent number is awful. I'm not sure he cares.
Yeah.
But mostly he cares about his own base.
Sure.
But you get down to 30%, that's a bad number. Yeah. And second-term presidents that I've known having a hard time of it, whose names weren't Reagan or Clinton.
Right.
They can, slip down in the 42, 43%.
Right.
It's bad, but they can
although
get
it did happen to Bush once. All right, listen, Tom Hutchinson, senior financial editor of the High Income Factor. It's highincomefactor.com, the newsletter. Check it out. Steve Malzberg on the Steve Malzberg Show. Thanks for coming on. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Steve.
All right, when we come back, Ryan Morrow. You're not going to want to miss this if you care about terrorism, if you fly, if you're planning on flying, if you've ever flown. Get a load of this and where our money's going to Turkey and Qatar. Steve Malzberg Show, Newsmax TV and